Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Let's kick off the show by catching up with events in the Middle East, where U.S. President Donald Trump said he is not interested in negotiating with Iran and raised the possibility that the Iran war would only end once Tehran no longer has a functioning military or any remaining leadership in power. In the meantime, President Trump has commended the performance of the U.S. military in the ongoing conflict, even rallying the effort rating it as high as 15 out of 10, and claiming that Iranian armed forces have been largely destroyed. He told reporters that Iran's army, navy, and air force have been wiped out, that communications and leadership structures are collapsing, and that what remains of Iran's military has been decimated by U.S. and allied airstrikes. The American leader insisted the campaign was necessary to stop long-term threats and praised U.S. forces for their effectiveness.
Thank you. What is motivating you to do this right now? Because there is a lot of other stuff going on in the world.
Right. That's right. There's a lot. We're doing by the way, in Iran, we're doing very well. Somebody said, how would you score it from 0 to 10? I said, I'd give it a 12 to a 15. Their army is gone. They're just about, look, their navy is gone. Their communications are gone. Their leaders are gone. 2 sets of their leaders are gone. They're down to their 3rd set. Their air force is wiped out entirely. Think of it. They have 32 ships. All 32 are at the bottom of the ocean. Other than that, they're doing very well, Coach. Very well. We're doing, our military is doing phenomenally. That's the big thing for this week. We seem to have a new thing every week, but the situation with a very bad and very sick group of leaders who were killing a lot of people. A lot of our people were being killed. They were being maimed. They were being destroyed with their bombs all over the place, planted in roads, and we call them the roadside bombs, walking around without legs, without arms, face blasted, killed many, many people. And we had a choice. We could take it and go on like that for years or do something about it. And we did something about it. And people are very impressed with our military, and they admire our military with what happened in Venezuela and what's happening now, what's happened with the B-2 bombers before this, where they took out the nuclear capability or potential of Iran. I think we're right now, we're a country that's more respected than we've ever been respected before. I saw what was happening with college sports, and it doesn't sound very important compared to what's happening in Iran and other places, but it is very important to me. And if I can get it done, I'll get it done. Through a bad system, it's a bad system. Through a bad legal system, you want to know the truth, we have a situation that is almost unsolvable, and we'll see if we can solve it.
Well, the war in the Middle East continues to escalate, seeing horrifying videos yesterday coming out of Iran with the increasing of fires. Did you see that coming out of Tehran yesterday? Absolutely frightening. With U.S. Central Command, of course, has said that they have now hit 3,000 targets in Iran, with 43 Iranian naval vessels being taken out. Whereas on the Iranian side, Al Jazeera is now reporting that Iran claims to have gotten some prisoners of war, some American prisoners of war. So although President Trump is letting us know that he believes that, they have been decimated, their military instruments have been decimated, it seems that Iran's multi-layered mosaic military structure is allowing them to keep fighting in certain ways, whereas you have the president apologizing to the Gulf states on one hand, and then you have senior military officials in other areas restating that American bases in Gulf states are still legitimate targets. So I'm not entirely sure if we're seeing the end, because it does seem like if Trump is saying 15 out of 10, if they're completely decimated, it would appear that he believes that this might be wrapping up soon. But it does seem that Iran is going to keep fighting this war. And not just, looking at what's going on in Iran and and Israel and America, because of course, as I said yesterday, the theater of war has expanded. Iran, of course, sent out more threats to Azerbaijan, specifically on day 8 of this war. And then, of course, what we saw happen in Lebanon yesterday, absolutely horrific, when the Israeli Defense Forces went to go and recover the bones of Ron Arad, a man who has been declared dead or missing for 40 years, and trying to get his bones in a village in Lebanon, which has left at least 41 villagers dead, as well as some members of Hezbollah. Those who have been long gone and dead, trying to get the body or bones of someone who's been gone for 4 decades, has now left over 40 villagers dead in Lebanon. And so I'm very afraid of the scenes that we're going to continue to see from this region if something does not change soon.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody's very concerned, very worried. 8 days, after 8 days of this bloody war, of course, it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Yes, there might be hyperboles and exaggerations in what President Trump is saying, given the fact that for the attacks of last year June, the 12-day war, what he made the world believe was that, the capabilities of Iran towards nuclear armament, has been totally obliterated. But here we are, fighting another war, and he's telling everybody, oh, this is how far we've gone. We're doing quite well. And then you're saying that this will be prosecuted for at least, 4 to 6 weeks, whereas Defense Secretary or Secretary of War, as it's now been rechristened, is saying that it will last for as long as necessary. Who do we believe, between the President and the Secretary of War? But, it's the toll, really, on everybody. It's the toll on civilians, within the Gulf region, not to talk of in Iran itself, which is, don't let us pretend that it's easy on Iran. Iran is being badly, bombarded. Scary stuff. It's been badly.
Yes.
And Trump has said that what will even happen, today, over the course of the week, is going to be a lot heavy. I get the point of propaganda in war, and you will get that on all sides. But from what we can see, you can see where, in terms of heavy bombardment, where it's tilting. And it will most probably be like that, given the superior firepower and the combination of the United States and Israel. But then it's not a tea party for a country like Iran, given the fact that, they are basically defending themselves. They're defending a regime that looks like, at what point will it crack after the death, of the Ayatollah. They're defending, if you like, heritage, for example, and their firm belief, almost similar to, the kamikaze strategy that we saw in Japan, during the Second World War, when they said, we'd rather die, than give up. What the Yorubas will call ikuya jesim, that you'd rather die than give up. But at what point do you say that I've had enough, or that you are just incapable of continuing? I think that's what the Americans and the Israelis are gunning for. The destruction that that would have been meted out on Iran would be unimaginable after 4 weeks, if this will have to drag to 4 weeks. I hope it doesn't. I hope that something comes up midway at the end of the day that will bring sanity back on both sides. But given what Israel is also doing, in Lebanon, for example, I mean, it's a bit scary. And that speaks to, in a way, what happened on October 7th, when Israel, did make the promise that this is not just going to be, about Hamas, but also about Hezbollah and about anybody that he perceived to be assisting the attacks against his own citizens.
Yes, but although I do understand this, I think what has happened now in the Bekaa Valley with 41 villagers being killed, it's something, because this was a symbolic type of operation, right? To get the bones of a famous pilot who went missing 40 years ago, 1986. And in order to try and recover this, to go and dig up graves, multiple graves actually, in the Lebanese countryside, in an area close to the Lebanese-Syria border. And in order to try and dig up the bones of a man who died in 1986, they were digging up graves of different people, and because they could not do that, they then killed 41. At this time, the reports are now saying that at least 41 people in the Bekaa Valley, these are villagers, and that's not counting the Lebanese troops. Right, it's absolutely horrific. It's actually unimaginable the scale of loss of life that we are seeing currently.
War is horrendous. The casualties that will be recorded on both sides, and the things that countries will have to go through to get to the point where they are being seen as being victorious or having the upper hand. It is, it's almost to the point of being inhuman. And of course, in war, yes, you can say that in war everything is fair, but then there are rules of engagement. There are rules of the game, when it comes to even war. The whole idea of prisoners of war and things like that, the one we reference that Iranians are now claiming that they have, a few Americans, etc. I mean, those are the things that are concerning, the people, citizens, even officers that, were just basically sitting on their own, protecting the interests of their country. And now they're dying. We're seeing the body bags already. But in all this, for me, it is how when we've now started feeling the pinch back home. After our program, yesterday morning, drove out, and of course you saw that everything has now jumped. Fuel, diesel, even cooking gas, everything has now jumped. Fuel is now more than 1,000 at a time that many Nigerians are struggling with the low supply of electricity. Bande in many areas of Nigeria has now become Bandiyepa because people just basically, can find electricity that they are paying for. And then on top of that, you see people dying, on a daily basis. Like I said, I hope that it will get to a point that common sense will prevail. I like the fact that the Iranian president, come out, yesterday to say that we apologize to, our neighbors, and that we have asked, our people, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, to stop attacking neighbors, except, of course, when we see that such countries are being used to attack Iran. But at what point, for how long will Iran be able to hold out and be able to, keep supplying, ammunition? I see what they are doing with the, cheaply made drones and the impact that they are making in the war. But I'm saying that, for how long? You can ask a country that has been bombarded not to defend itself, but also, context matters, as they say, even though we have seen that word, used badly, these days. So this is where we are. By today, it will be another week. What will the next 8 days, mean for global citizens, particularly in the Gulf region, in the Middle East, and particularly for those in Iran who are feeling it on a daily basis. I mean, it's tough out there. But of course, we are also feeling the pinch, like I said. I don't want to go out there and buy fuel, for 1,100, 1,200, because we don't even know at what point all this will stop. We will have Iranian ambassador, at some point on this program today, so that he can also give clarity to some of the things that are going on, particularly what the Israeli ambassador said. But we will see, how it pans out at this war.
Yes, definitely.